Hello and welcome to GRCC's Academic Support Online Tutor Training. Empowering students to become independent, lifelong learners is the mission of this department and a fundamental skill that GRCC strives to instill in all its students. In this session, we are going to talk about the typical characteristics of an independent learner and how we can encourage our students to become more independent in their academic studies. Studying in college requires students to transition to greater independence by taking responsibility for their own learning, becoming more self-directed, and making decisions about what they will focus on and how much time they will spend on learning both inside and outside the classroom. As a tutor, you play an integral part in facilitating this process. As you work through this module, you will learn a little bit about the characteristics and attributes of an independent learner. We'll try to answer the questions, what makes someone an independent learner, as well as how can tutors recognize these traits? We'll discuss how to identify students who may need help becoming more independent. And finally, we'll look at some techniques to use during tutoring sessions to help students strengthen independent study habits. When we tutor students, they often focus exclusively on the topic at hand. They want to know how to solve this problem or how to make this paper grammatically correct. Focused tutoring for a specific topic may help our students pass an exam, but it doesn't promote the use of critical thinking skills necessary for future success in coursework or life challenges beyond school. Often, the short-term goals of students in a tutoring session are at odds with what they will want to accomplish long-term. They don't always understand that they ultimately need to be able to help themselves. As the saying goes, give a man a fish and he eats for a day, teach him how to fish and he eats for life. Independent learning skills help students rise to the challenge when faced with a new situation. Once established, these skills enable students to confidently use problem-solving strategies in a variety of circumstances. Part of our role as tutors is to help students gain the skills they need to become independent, lifelong learners. So, how should we define an independent learner? As is the case with many terms commonly used in higher education, independent learning can mean different things to different people. A student that can complete and understand all of their work on their own is definitely an independent learner, but we want to define the term more broadly. Our definition will be a student who can evaluate their own learning needs, work to meet those needs, in many cases working independently, and can also locate and utilize resources when needed. At times, we will all have trouble understanding the material taught in the classroom. What differentiates the independent learner is that they can recognize they are not fully understanding the concepts and apply strategies to help gain the understanding they need. Tutors are one resource that independent learners may utilize. In addition to helping with the student's immediate problem, we want to help students gain the skills to be successful even when they are not working with us. As a student starts to take ownership of their learning and experiences success, they also develop valuable confidence and self-motivation. This can increase their enjoyment of school while also preparing them for personal and professional success later in life. But does independent learning always mean working on your own? No. Working with someone else or a study group, encouraging each other, and talking through problems may sometimes be the most effective way of working independently. Independence is not synonymous with working individually. We just mean, can a student use available resources to find a solution? What skills or characteristics does an independent learner typically possess? Are these things we teach people, or are they things that are learned through experience? Or is it both? Confidence. They're confident in their abilities, and they don't rely on anyone else to accomplish their goals. They also have a positive view of themselves, which translates into greater success in the classroom. Curiosity. Independent learners want to find out more. They learn from various angles and formats, not just traditional instruction. They are proactive and find ways to access additional resources on their own. Self-motivation. Independent learners are motivated by setting internal goals. They are driven by their own personal achievement. Natural motivation far surpasses any prize or reward system. Self-examination. Independent learners know how to evaluate themselves. They can see their strengths and their weaknesses. They strive for measurable progress. Accountability. They know what they have to do and do it without anyone telling them to. Critical thinking. When dealing with a problem, independent learners examine all possibilities and often come up with multiple solutions. They don't just memorize, Rather, they ask why and formulate answers based on real-world observation and intelligent deduction. Comprehension. Independent learners have the ability to read, visualize, and ultimately understand the material. No matter the topic or subject studied, an independent learner will find ways to understand material through application. Comprehension is achieved with little or no instruction. Persistence. Independent learners don't give up. They strive to understand a concept as much as possible on their own before asking for help. They also apply self-discipline in not finding the easy answer to a problem. They teach themselves and generally only ask questions after struggling to find a solution on their own. What do you think when you see this list of personal characteristics? In a perfect world, each of us would be like this, but as it turns out, not many people have all of these traits. On the brighter side, we all have some of these characteristics, and this is something that we can nurture in our students. Our goal is to teach students the skills that allow them to be successful, not just in one class, but in all of their classes. We want our students to develop good problem-solving skills, and we want them to know when and how to get help for themselves. As you work with students, you will also need to take into consideration other factors that can affect how independently they are working. You should also avoid making cultural assumptions about individual students. International students, for example, can be unsure about what is required in their new learning environment and may, at least initially, want to know the correct methods and answers during this period of uncertainty. In most cases, they may be very capable of working independently and will show these traits once they are more comfortable with the environment. Distance learning offers another set of challenges for students. Colleges are experiencing a significant increase with the students taking online classes. This environment, where the instructor will be at a distance and the support options are often limited, can increase the challenges for a student who is not a confident, independent learner. As tutors, we should encourage students to learn independently. As you may have already experienced, students aren't always interested in the long term. They want the answer to the question in front of them. While we do want to help them with their immediate problem, we also want to keep in mind the long-term goal of being a good student and developing the traits of independent learning. When you first meet with your tutee and after you have had your introductions, talk to them about their previous learning experiences. What style of learning works best for them? Are they a visual learner? Are they an auditory learner? What study strategies have worked for them in the past? This will help guide you as you work with your tutee. Find out their expectations of the course. How are they expecting to be taught, tested? How do they expect to facilitate their own learning? This is an opportunity to review the course syllabus and compare the students' expectations with those established by the instructor. Are they similar, or is there a gap between the two? You may have to help the student bring their expectation in line with those of the instructor. Talk about your expectations for the tutoring sessions as well. What will they need? Do they have their textbook and notes? Have they completed the required reading? Have they attempted to work on the assignment? It is important that you reach a shared understanding of these expectations. Establishing these ground rules early in the tutoring process will make your sessions more effective and will help you begin to develop the foundation for more independence with your tutee. As you start your tutoring sessions, use this opportunity to observe and evaluate the needs of the tutee. Allowing them to work on an assignment as you observe their problem-solving strategies will often help you develop the best way to proceed in your sessions. By first letting the student work a problem, you are also helping them establish the foundations of independent learning through critical thinking, self-examination, and persistence. In another session, Role of the Tutor Part 1, we discussed using guided questioning techniques during tutoring sessions. This is one area where questioning is critical. Here are a few possible phrases you can use to help get the process started. What have you tried so far? Or, how have you done this in other classes? If a student has no idea where to start, you might try suggesting, let's look in the book. Using the word let's shows the student they are not alone and can help to build a tutorial partnership. After the initial observation period, you can engage your tutee in the typical tutoring session conversation, acknowledging and encouraging the work they are doing, assisting when needed, and reaffirming the concepts that were presented by the instructor. During this collaboration, you can begin to talk about independent learning and the benefits of developing these skills. This interaction will help the tutee both with their immediate problem as well as with the long-term goal of being an excellent student throughout their academic career and beyond. The transition for students into new ways of thinking and learning will be gradual. It will be supported by you in their tutoring sessions and can also be developed through group work, study partners, and discussion boards for online classes. Let's take a look at some good basic tips for you to work into the conversation with tutees. Effective studying starts by going to class. If your tutee lets you know that they have missed class, encourage them to go. Sometimes a little reminder goes a long way. When in class, they need to be active listeners, fully concentrating on what is being said and writing notes in their own words. Simply hearing the message is not enough. Effective note-taking is another skill that is key to becoming a successful student and an independent learner. You may have to give your tutee some hints for how to organize notes. Study early and study often. Like it or not, repetition is a critical part of the learning process. Breaking up study sessions into shorter, more focused sessions is far more effective than cramming in at the last minute. Encourage tutees to study with other people. If they miss something in class, you as a tutor are not the only resource. Explaining concepts to other people helps both parties understand the material better. Asking for support and advice is an important part of independent learning. This support can come in many forms, including from fellow students. As a good student, you may know that one way to stay motivated is to think about what you want to get out of your work and remind yourself of that the next time you feel yourself fading. Setting both short and long-term goals can keep you organized and motivated. Your tutee may need help setting these goals and seeing the value of this type of planning. It's more than likely they have several classes to juggle at any one time. Encourage them to establish a study schedule and determine how long they will need to spend on each class to be successful. Suggest they organize material in the way that makes sense to them. This might mean changing the order in which the material was presented or relating the new material to past knowledge. Whatever the strategy, students need to be organized, so encourage them to make lists, draw pictures, rewrite notes, whatever it takes. You may notice that when students come to you for help, they haven't always read the textbook, or if they have, they didn't quite understand it. Sometimes this is because they don't know how to effectively use the book. So let's review some basic textbook skills. Encourage them to skim the material before reading it in detail. This will give them a feeling for how the content is laid out in the chapter and what content may be more difficult to understand, and how much time to schedule for working with the material. When they read the book in detail, they will need to be an active reader, paying close attention to the content, highlighting important information in the book, and possibly making notes in the margins. If they don't want to mark up their book, encourage them to use sticky notes and just put them in the right place. Identifying key points in the text is a necessary skill and one that comes with practice. Knowing what to highlight might mean they need to read the material more than once. This is particularly true if they don't understand the material all that well. Break the reading up into manageable chunks. Reading everything in one sitting isn't a good way to remember the material. This goes back to the no cramming idea. The index and glossary may be particularly important when they are studying for a test and need to review material from several different chapters. Current textbooks are rarely just the book. Many come with CDs and websites that have additional materials such as notes, PowerPoint presentations, even practice tests. These resources can make studying on their own a lot easier. As a tutor, you should get to know the books you see students using and encourage them to use these additional resources. It's important to keep in mind that we're trying to give our tutees the skills they need to learn on their own. In addition to helping them with the problem at hand, your job is to figure out what skills they might be lacking, encourage them to seek help when necessary, and give them tips to get them moving in the right direction. At this point in our session, you should have a better understanding of how we can encourage our students to become more independent in their academic studies. In the end, we want our students to be able to figure out what they need to be successful, and then we want them to have the skills and knowledge to take the necessary steps. Being an independent learner doesn't mean that the student does everything alone, but rather that he or she takes the initiative to diagnose their own learning needs, formulate goals, identify resources to meet those goals, and then takes action. In your role as a tutor, you'll likely spend much of your time helping students with a problem in front of them. But within this context, we want to do more. Keep in mind that our ultimate goal is to help the students do more on their own. You can help your tutee become more independent by letting them struggle with their own work before stepping in, evaluating the student's needs, showing them how to use the resources available to them, and then suggesting additional study tips. Hopefully the tips we covered here will help you with the content of your message. It's your job to determine when and how to deliver the message so it's effective. As you finish this session, make sure to complete the assessment while the information is fresh in your mind. You'll find the assessment in Blackboard. There is also a study skills tip sheet that you may want to share with your tutees.